We're spinning. Hey, we are live. That always every time it always catches me by surprise. I see a little spinning thing over here in the corner, and I'm waiting and I'm waiting, and it says, "Hey, you're live." And I'm always shocked when we're live. But hey, we're live. What's happening, everybody? What's happening, Kevin?
Not all that much. Hope everybody's doing well out there. Thank you guys for tuning in to the Two Bros Wrestling Show on another Sunday evening, and a week away from a pay-per-view Survivor Series coming up next week. So that's what we're going to be doing in the main event tonight. We're going to be talking Survivor Series, giving you our picks, and let us know what you think. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And these pay-per-views come way too fast, man. I have a hard time keeping up.
That's how you know the year is getting by, because we're already to Survivor Series, which used to be at the very tail end of the WWE calendar year, but now we managed to squeeze a couple of more events in there before the calendar turns. But yeah, Survivor Series next week, and that's our main event. But Doug, if you want to hit the news first, we got a lot of it.
Opening bell. You got our love it.
It is the opening bell, and it has been a busy news week. And I was going to maybe save the largest story to last because I wanted to spend some time with it. But let's go ahead. And
Let's do it.
top news is top news, and this is definitely what's got the wrestling world ablaze this week. But if you've not heard, on Friday, just hours before SmackDown was to air, Zelina Vega was released from WWE. Their announcement occurred minutes after Zelina herself had tweeted her support of unionization, which of course has long been a sore point amongst wrestlers in this industry. But more than likely, even though it's not been officially said on either side, the reasons why, we know that Zelina has been unhappy, as a lot of talent have been unhappy, with the recent edict from WWE regarding the third-party social media platforms, your Twitches, your YouTube monetizations, and they were trying to, capture all that if you're using your WWE persona. And reportedly, Zelina is one of those who was not only not happy, but stood up for herself. And obviously, you see where that led, because she has a huge Twitch following. The girl is a big cosplayer. She is a big gamer, and she apparently did not want to give up control of her Twitch. She recently started an OnlyFans. So there's many reasons why she was not happy with this new rule in WWE, but it looks as if, Doug, she may have paid the ultimate price for it. And as you and I have talked, both bros here are big fans of Zelina Vega, and just think that she had a world of untapped yet potential on WWE. So AEW come February, when that non-compete is up, you would be foolish not to embellish. Doug, Sheeta versus Zelina Vega. Can you see it already?
Dude, I can so see it already. I think this was very, very foolish. I mean, I get that they're trying to make an example. I mean, but Aleister Black was recently asked to go back to NXT because he's just, being handed crap on the main roster. And there have been times in the recent past where McMahon has reportedly been high on both Vega and Black, but we see where that's got both of them. I think this man has the attention span of a goldfish, honestly, with his being high on people. And I really wonder where this leaves Aleister Black, her real life husband, because they also had a huge YouTube channel, A to Z. So I wonder. I mean, Zelina has Twitch, her Twitter, multiple Instagrams. One dedicated totally to her cosplay. They're A to Z, where they, I mean, they're both big gamers, big geeks. Huge collectors of just a lot of fun and goofy things. And I'm just wondering how long it is before Tommy End is out of WWE as well.
Well, he got moved to SmackDown in the draft, and you see what they've done with him since he got there. I was hopeful that it was a new start for him. He hasn't even been on TV the last couple of weeks. I understand that his request to go back to NXT was almost specifically to be back working underneath Triple H,
Mm-hmm.
and now you add the added insult of letting his wife go. I can't imagine that. He's not going to be too very far behind. It's very difficult to do what Lana and Rusev are currently doing, and that is being on both sides of that divide. Renee Young's a great example of a talent who, made it a few years after her husband departed, but not very long after she left the WWE ship. You could look at the same thing back in the CM Punk days. With, he and his wife, they both left not too very long after each other. So
yeah, Punk was officially fired on his wedding day, though. Let's not forget that.
they have a history with this, and it is a hard line, but I honestly think this is one of those that will come back to bite them. Not that WWE is not the juggernaut that will go on regardless, but it's not like Zelina is someone who we've seen enough of on the main roster, or Aleister Black on the main roster, that they are overexposed, or their time is done, they're on the downhill slide. Both these guys have untapped potential, and AEW has to be salivating right now at counting down the days until February, when they can really enhance their women's division, which is one of the areas of AEW that some fans have complained has been a little lacking. They've done better as of late, but gosh, you add Zelina to that mix. This lady is as talented as they come out there, and I think that one day WWE will rue this decision to make an example out of her.
I know. I'm saying cue up Cinderella, because Tony Khan's not the only one that's going to be playing it soon.
Yep, absolutely. Doug, there is some other news. That obviously is the biggest thing. More bad news, I guess, related to the coronavirus and other folks losing their job at WWE. Obviously, Zelina's issues. We'll keep the fans informed on that on the show once more comes out behind the scenes. Somebody will talk about what really happened there. But WWE had other layoffs this week, as it were, letting go. That was not disciplinary, which it seems like Zelina's very well may have been. But this is all related to the live business of WWE, or I guess in this instance, more accurately, the non-live business, since there is no touring any longer. As many as 15 individuals this week lost their jobs, and most of those folks were backstage talent type, the folks that work the live events behind the scenes, merchandise folks, people that really WWE doesn't have a need for in this current environment when they're not able to do that touring. So from that business standpoint, it is understandable, although it is somewhat surprising that some of those folks that were let go included Tony Chimmel, who is a well-known ring announcer. Most of you all would probably know Tony if you saw him, if you didn't even know him by name. But longtime WWE fans are going to know Tony Chimmel. He used to be more up front on Raw and SmackDown, but now he had primarily been a live events ring announcer. But he had been with the company, since like the early 1990s. 91, 92, something along those lines. So, there's news from behind the scenes, and again, you don't know how true some of this is, but some talent are being told that live events aren't just not going to be a thing next year, but that Vince is reportedly looking at it as live events as we know it are done, like forever kind of done. WWE made a huge amount of money this past year without the benefit of running those live shows. Over the last few years, as we've followed, and if you followed any of the conference calls that Vince does with investors, you'll see that the amount of money that they have made continues to lessen when it comes to live events. So the profit margins were getting thinner, audiences were getting smaller, and as they've shown with their profit margins, there's a lot of money to be made when they can cut the cost that it is that touring requires. So they very well may only, even once the world returns to normal, Doug, I can foresee live events, if they're not on TV, they're not happening.
I've heard this too about the live events, and I hate to think that NXT that we saw last March was our last live WWE event that we are going to see, but it certainly sounds like that might be the case.
And in a related story, Doug, AEW had a couple of events on their calendar for the month of December. I think Tallahassee was one, and maybe someplace in Alabama was another. They were going to take Dynamite, or at least had planned at some point that by December they'd be back on the road with Dynamite. But needless to say, as coronavirus cases continue to spike and more folks are rolling back some of those more stringent restrictions that we saw earlier in the pandemic. Out of an abundance of caution, AEW is doing the right thing by canceling those shows as well.
Absolutely.
So right now, there's nothing on the AEW live events calendar until you get to February. So that's, I guess, the next time they're going to attempt to take it out of Orlando. And who knows with how much longer in Florida even wrestling will be allowed to occur in a live setting when you get people, in AEW's case, actual fans in attendance. That may be the next thing we're reporting on here in a few weeks. It would not surprise me. Some other comings and going, Doug. This one is another one where I hope that Tony has got the speed dial ready. But the Rascals apparently are gone from Impact Wrestling. Trey Miguel, Zach Wentz, and Desmond Xavier are all free agents following a recent loser leave town style match that they had on recent Impact. And reportedly, this was not just a scripted farewell. This was the actual farewell, and the trio are truly free agents. If so, if not Tony, then Triple H at NXT. Somebody better get on the phone, because the Rascals, in my opinion, easily in the top 4 or 5 tag teams in the world, I believe, right now. And my goodness, particularly with that loaded AEW tag team division, you add the Rascals to that mix, it just makes me salivate thinking about the possibilities of a Young Bucks or Lucha Brothers. Throw the Rascals in on that, and you absolutely would blow the roof off the place. So hopefully they land somewhere. I'm sure bigger and better things are on tap for them as well. Chelsea Green made her main roster debut on SmackDown on Friday night. And unfortunately, if you wondered what happened to her after her entrance, it wasn't very much long into the match at all, if you saw. And I don't know if you saw, Doug. I couldn't tell exactly where the accident happened, but apparently she broke her arm, which is incredibly bad luck to happen right as you're getting ready to make your main roster debut. So best wishes to Chelsea Green. Hope you get better and heal fast. I think she's another talented person people are going to enjoy seeing on the main roster, and more than just that entrance.
Yeah, that is very, very unfortunate. It sounds a lot worse than it is, because I've read some follow-up reports, and apparently I know she tweeted that she broke her arm after her entrance, but it sounds more like it's a broken wrist than an actual arm. So I mean, still, a break is a break, but still.
Yeah. We're off TV for a bit of time, but it should heal a lot faster than the broken arm would have. So hopefully that means she's back on our screens before too very long. Unfortunate break, so to speak, but couldn't help myself. Leo Rush, remember old Leo Rush? Well, apparently Leo is headed to MTV. The former indie standout who also had some real highlights during his time on NXT, and then again on the main roster there for a little while, managing Bobby Lashley. He is headed apparently to the 36th season of MTV's reality competition, The Challenge. He is going to be one of the contestants. That could be kind of interesting, if only for the fact that Leo Rush had all the talent in the world. The man could fly, the man could wrestle, the man could talk. Backstage, he had some behavior issues that sort of sidelined his career and forced him pretty much out of the wrestling business in general. It'd be interesting to see if that kind of personality traits actually help in a reality competition like this, which it very well may make for better television, but it could be interesting. But I was surprised to get some Leo Rush news this week. And then the last thing, Doug, I'll mention is that there are some reports coming out of WWE right now that members of Evolve, which is the independent promotion that WWE purchased over the summer, that some members of Evolve have been offered contracts, and there's been some deals, there's some information coming out about exactly how this whole Evolve purchase is actually breaking down and working. Initially, these were just some folks that they were, maybe going to retain for future use. Well, apparently what they're doing is signing them to short-term contracts that are reportedly worth around $60,000 in their downside guarantees. So what happens is the talent gets that downside guarantee, and then if they are used anytime on an NXT or a 205 Live or whatever, for whatever episode of WWE TV they appear on, they get an extra $500. up against that downside guarantee. These contracts are being described as short-term agreements that could increase to much higher starting in the new year, when they maybe have a better idea as to how they're going to use some of these talents. Because you buy an entire organization and you got all this roster talent, as we saw with much bigger purchases back in the day of your WCWs or whatever. Then you have to decide who you're going to retain, how much of that talent you're willing to take on, in addition to the cost you've already paid for the promotion. But at this time, it's said that the talents bonuses are satisfactory compared to what most of them could have made on the indies, and especially since there really is no indies, most of these wrestlers appear pretty happy, and knowing that these contracts have the ability to perhaps triple as much in size with additional TV appearances throughout the year. And supposedly WWE is happy with several of these talent as well, and are much happier to be able to start signing talent to short-term agreements, so that they don't end up in a situation where they're locked in, paying a lot of money to somebody who just isn't working out, or who, as we've seen with just like we were talking at the top of the news, talented folks who creative has nothing for or has done nothing with. So
Right.
maybe this is best for all involved, and short-term agreements keep some of these guys from being locked up so long that they couldn't move on to an AEW or a Impact or Ring of Honor or Japan or Indies if they open back up, just to have other places to work. And Doug, with that is the news, unless you have anything more that I missed.
You had a lot more than I did, so I'm ready for a main event. How about you?
I'm ready. I'm ready for the main event. Now, whether or not we're ready for Survivor Series, I guess, is the other thing. Because, like you said, these pay-per-views come fast. And I guess I'll start my Survivor Series spiel out by saying, just from a historical perspective, Survivor Series was back before we had these pay-per-views that come around every couple of weeks. The pay-per-view calendar in WWE was really set by the big four. You had WrestleMania, King of the Ring, SummerSlam, Royal Rumble, and Survivor Series. And I have to be honest with you, Doug, and I don't know what you feel about it, but even back in the day when there was just the four to look forward to, obviously you love Mania, and SummerSlam, usually was another slam dunk. I love the King of the Ring idea. Royal Rumble has always been one of my favorite gimmick matches.
I'm with you.
Survivor Series was probably my least favorite of the bunch.
Yeah.
The traditional Survivor Series matchup where you take 5 random people and put them on a team against 5 other random people in an elimination style match just never did a whole lot for me, as far as being sucked into the storyline, because there really was no purpose behind what they were fighting for. And I'm glad that in recent years they have usually limited the concept of Survivor Series to what they call the traditional Survivor Series style match, which is usually just one for the men and one for the women. And I think that it is much better to spend most of your card now doing dream matchups, if there is such a thing anymore, brand versus brand. That has more intrigue to me than the Survivor Series style matches.
Yeah, and it becomes more of like a Clash of Champions than Survivor Series. And the thing I don't like about the modern day Survivor Series with a brand split is you have these teams of random people, especially right after a draft this time, where people have little to no allegiances to their new, brands that they're suddenly on. But yeah, suddenly, you have people coming over from Raw who now bleed blue because they're all about SmackDown. And 10 minutes ago they were on the other show. I don't know. There's a lot of wrestling logic that you just have to go with in these things, but whatever, man. It's wrestling.
I can definitely go for the understanding of, hey, I'm a better world champion than you're a world champion.
Sure.
Let the best man or woman win. But the whole brand allegiance thing always seemed a little forced to me. I mean, I as we mentioned on this show before, I follow baseball, the only other sport I follow other than my scripted sport. But one of Dodgers trade a shortstop to the American League. I can't see that guy just absolutely hating the National League now. It's just no one feels that strongly when you're making millions of dollars to be bought and sold, as a business. No one's going to bleed blue or bleed red the way they make it sound. That's
right.
Not the best of gimmicks. Last year actually was I enjoyed the idea of involving NXT, and I could enjoy and get behind the concept of here are these guys that aren't considered the main brand, wanting to show the guys on the main brand that we're made of tough stuff and are just as good as you. That actually seemed like something that you could legitimately see athletes fighting over.
Sure. But
Not so much.
you can't do that every year, though, and thankfully, there's been no Saudi Arabian hostage situation this year to force something like that again. But WWE has at least shown restraint and said, well, we can't do that again 2 years in a row because let's let it lay for a while before we bring it back. But
So,
I don't
yeah.
know. I'm looking at the matches here: the Team Raw, Team SmackDown.
Where do you want to start? Let's start lower card. What do you say?
Sure, let's start
Let's
lower
go ahead
card.
and let's go get the Survivor Series matches out of the way.
That's cool.
I think there's actually more intrigue for me anyway in the other matches.
Me too.
So
Yeah.
let's do the women's match first because it still has the most to be decided, and so it's going to be the harder one to talk about. But on Team Raw, you have Nia Jax, Shayna Baszler, Mandy Rose, Dana Brooke, and Lana
Uh-huh.
versus Bianca Belair, Ruby Riott, Liv Morgan, and then two people who haven't even been announced yet, which makes it a little hard to call. But, Doug, I figure that this one's got to come down to some sort of storyline advancement with the whole Lana, Nia Jax
That's
situation.
what I'm seeing here too, because I mean, every time Lana and Nia Jax are in close proximity to each other, poor Lana goes through a table anyway. So
you have to figure that either one, that something breaks down there and Raw loses because Nia Jax just would rather torture Lana than participate in a match that doesn't mean anything, or somehow Lana gets her comeuppance and shows that she's tougher than people are giving her credit for, and she somehow manages to be the lone survivor. I can see either of those things happening. I'm going to probably, just because we don't know who is even going to fill out the
right.
SmackDown team, I'm going to say let's give this one to Team Raw, in my opinion.
I'm thinking Team SmackDown at least has a functional looking team because you have Riot Squad members. You basically have the Riot Squad, and you got Bianca Belair, who's kind of teamed with Riot Squad recently. At least the three of these girls can function as a unit to some degree anyway. So
I'm figuring Natalia might also end up being one of those because she's been like desperately trying to get on the team. So I wouldn't be surprised if something happens this last SmackDown that puts Natty on that team. So you're going Team SmackDown on this one.
I'm going to Team SmackDown just to be difficult.
This one's difficult in general, just trying to pick.
I know. These are always
the men's match actually has a little more, clearer picture, I guess we should say. So on the Raw side, Doug, you got Keith Lee, AJ Styles, Sheamus, Braun Strowman, and Riddle, only Riddle.
Yeah, only Riddle. I don't know what
against the SmackDown team of KO, Jey Uso, King Corbin, Seth Rollins, and one more person to be decided. What say you about this one, Doug?
Jey Uso's not made any friends recently with KO, and I can see that other to be determined being maybe Daniel Bryan, which then causes some additional problems with Jey Uso there, and then you got Corbin and Rollins. Man, I don't know. You've got some interesting. I'm going to go with Team Raw on this one. I think Team Raw could function more as a unit here and pull something off.
You're going Raw?
I'm going Raw.
I'm kind of that's the way I'm leaning too. Maybe it is because we have one seat not filled yet, but I definitely see the Jey Uso storyline being the storyline of this match. Thanks for watching, Scott. Yeah, Lana. I think that Lana is, very likely could, decide that if she's not appreciated by her counterparts, that she's the one that's going to help lead them to victory. It is just hard to predict these Survivor Series style matches, which is one of the reasons why I kind of wanted to get it out of the way first, because there is a lot they can do with them, and I can't say that they, aren't sometimes entertaining. But in general, there's the stakes aren't always clear. So let's look then though at some of the champions versus champion matches where the stakes are a little more clear, and that, as you said, it probably would have been better had we had more build up. not so soon after a draft where you associated some of these guys more with their shows than, some of these folks have just recently arrived on their new brands. But we got United States champion Bobby Lashley against the Intercontinental champion Sami Zayn. And both these guys are great in their roles. I have to think with this one, though, Sami is fantastic in his role as the guy who does whatever and somehow manages to just sneak by with a win. Since there is no titles on the line in these things and it's just pride they're fighting for, I don't see that anybody would be surprised for a monster like Bobby Lashley just to mow through Sami Zayn. I kind of expect that could happen, and Sami will be right back on Friday and like nothing ever happened with some excuse for what happened to him and still have his belt. So he doesn't really risk losing anything in this one. I think that the Bobby Lashley goes over on this.
I gotta agree with you there because I don't think Sammy loses anything with a loss, and because he plays that sneaky little heel just great anyway. So I mean, if there were to be any kind of anything to give him an out, maybe something. Some shenanigans from the Hurt Business, but I don't think it's necessary here. I think Bobby goes over clean, and then Sammy has some heelish excuse and just rolls on with life.
Yeah, like it never happened.
Yep.
We're in agreement on this one.
Yep.
Let's talk the tag match, Doug. This is actually one that on paper I'm really pretty interested in because not only are these two of the better teams in WWE, these are two teams that have been almost intentionally kept separated, it seems, from each other. And so unlike a lot of matches in WWE, particularly when talent have been around for a bit of time, when you've kind of seen it before, we've not seen the New Day versus the Street Profits. And there's that interesting twist of with the two teams switching brands, they literally switched titles at the same time. Like, here's your Raw championships, and we take the SmackDown championships. I could see this one going either way. I may think that maybe the younger talent might need a little more of a win over the established team. So just by a nose, I'm going to say maybe Street Profits have a bit of an advantage.
So I've been thinking about this. I was looking at the card here. Does Big E play into this in any way? Does he come out with the New Day? I mean.
Well, they're on separate brands, but
he is still a member of New Day. I mean,
he is. And he defended them on this past week's SmackDown. Like, he stood up to Street Profits talking smack about his boys. So on a night when the talent are supposed to be intermingling amongst brands, it wouldn't be surprising, since he doesn't have another, really anything else to do, for Big E to show up there and support his boys.
That's what I'm looking at here, because I don't see, unless they pull him into this Raw Survivor Series or the SmackDown team for Survivor Series. I don't see Big E anywhere on this card. So maybe Big E, if he doesn't come out with New Day, maybe he's ringside. I do not think he will have any interference, and I think that the new kids do come over, do get the win over the established, long-term tag champs, the New Day. But I'm going to go with the new kids on this one and go with the Street Profits too.
There's another one we agree on. Maybe we'll agree on this next one too, Doug. Let's talk women. The women's champion of Raw, Asuka, is going to go up against the SmackDown champion, Sasha Banks. These two have consistently throughout their careers, whenever they've been in a program with one another, they tend to have good chemistry. So I expect you're going to have probably the better matches of the night. I think personally that Asuka doesn't have a lot going on right now, so I think that Sasha has more of a storyline reason to win. She's the one who recently had her redemption story of not only conquering Bayley and getting her revenge and ending that feud, and starting a new one with Carmella, but she also got rid of that boogaboo that had always followed her, that she wins the belt and then immediately loses it. Well, now she's successfully defended the title. I think that continuing to build her up makes sense right now. So I'm going to go Sasha on this one.
Man, I'm never going to bet against the boss. Okay. So, especially
Star of
since
the Mandalorian now.
he's now an established character in Star Wars. So,
As if Doug couldn't love her anymore.
right? And she's a Mandalorian at that. But anyway, yeah, I'm going with the Banks on this one too.
We all love Asuka here, but honestly, I don't think that Asuka, much like Sammy we talked about earlier, Asuka loses nothing, and Sasha would gain a whole lot right now from actually building her up strong.
Interesting side note. I mean, now we're talking about Sasha. On this past week's episode of The Mandalorian, she was not Sasha Banks. She was Mercedes. I forgot her
Yeah,
last name, but yeah, but she was listed by her real name,
I saw
and
that.
and there's no big buzz about it being Sasha Banks or anything like that. She's listed as Mercedes.
Well, I'm a fan of both Sasha and Mercedes, and she's definitely, I think, with the tie-in to the Mandalorian, it also makes sense just to keep her front and center and strong right now because that shine comes back on WWE, so they got to be cognizant of that fact.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're both going the boss on this one, which really leaves us with one match, Doug, and this match actually has a bit of intrigue as to whether or not it's actually going to be the two men that are advertised in this match because the champion versus champion match at the top of the on the men's side, if you're looking at the champion, should be Randy Orton, champ over on Raw, versus on the SmackDown side, you got the Tribal Chief Roman Reigns. However, a wrinkle in this is that on Monday Night Raw tomorrow night, Randy Orton is going to be defending his championship against Drew McIntyre. So they have thrown in that whole, who's going to be the champ by the time Survivor Series rolls around. And typically that's just a bait and switch to like make you think something's going to happen, but the advertised match is almost always what happens. However, Doug, on SmackDown Friday night, they're sure leaned hard on a Drew McIntyre Roman Reigns rivalry to almost make you think that Drew has a really good shot at taking that belt tomorrow night. What do you think about this?
So here's my thing. I think Drew, I think it's a red herring. The bigger story there is Jay doing something to screw up again because I think he's going to come out of this Survivor Series match. Whatever happens to him in the Survivor Series match, he's going to swing back around to try and make amends and do something to get over for the tribal chief, and it's going to end up screwing Roman Reigns out of a victory here against Randy Orton somehow.
So you think it is Randy Orton that that
Yeah,
Roman
I
is
think
going
McIntyre is a red herring, and the bigger story there is Jay doing something and trying to make amends, trying to get over again. But still not learning his place at where his place is at the table, and still not fully understanding who calls the shots. I think that's the bigger story there, and I think they'll go with that. I think Orton will go over. I don't know how clean he'll go over on Monday night to go against Reigns, but I think the Tribal Chief will see his first loss due to something that Jay does.
I agree with you that I think Roman Reigns loses this one based on something that Jay tries to do that backfires, and then we see the next round of what is going to be this tribe. What happens next? Who gets brought into it next? What's the next? What's the next chapter in this story that they're currently telling? Which has been fantastic, 100% fantastic. I just really, and maybe it is a red herring, but there is part of me, and maybe it's just the fan booking part of me, that I have more interest in a Drew McIntyre Roman Reigns match.
Oh God, so do I. So do I.
Like, we've not seen that. Randy Orton, Roman Reigns, not so much. It doesn't have the same intrigue to me. So there is part of me that thinks that Drew's going to somehow get into this match by the fact that it wasn't Randy Orton on Friday Night SmackDown staking any sort of claims against the Tribal Chief. But regardless, I'm going to equivocate and I guess hedge my bets by saying Roman Reigns is losing to the Raw champion.
So are we agreeing on everything except the women's match then? Where I'm going Team SmackDown?
only give me half credit on the main event, unless it does so happen it ends up being Drew McIntyre in that main event, and then I'll take full credit. But yeah, I think that logically, I think what we're doing, I mean, we're booking this ourselves as to what we would do, because when there aren't titles on the line, it actually in some ways does free up the bookers into maybe going in directions that they couldn't otherwise if they had long-term plans, which they sometimes WWE isn't good at, but for the most part, you should be having long-term plans as to where you want to get with feuds and championships. And you see feuds, like we mentioned, the Carmella feud starting up for Sasha, things is going to be happening. Well, if this was a regular pay-per-view where Sasha's belt was on the line, you'd have to do something different to protect that feud down the road with Carmella. You can really do anything with Survivor Series because the matches outcomes aren't consequential.
Right.
But storyline wise, they could be, and entertainment wise, there are some matches like a possible Drew Roman match or the Street Profits New Day match where you're looking at folks that you don't actually see interacting very much, and it does make for some intriguing television. So those are the matches I'm most looking forward to, and I think that we are. It sounds like we're fairly in agreement. And Doug, I know we've predicted every match, but I guess the one other thing we haven't mentioned that we should mention that is a big selling point they're using this year for Survivor Series is the farewell to the Undertaker.
Oh yeah.
The Undertaker debuted 30 years ago. His character debuted on WWE television at the at the Survivor Series pay-per-view. And so they're calling this the farewell. Obviously, the Undertaker he retired over the summer, a lot of fanfare, and then on WWE Network now they've been doing the 30 Days of the Undertaker with all kinds of special programming, much of which has been fantastic. And I don't think anybody's going to argue that if anyone deserves a big send-off, it's the Undertaker. A character as legendary as the Undertaker. However, I don't think this is actually the farewell. And I don't just think that for storyline purposes that he might wrestle again. I mean, obviously, your Ric Flairs had great farewells, and so did Shawn Michaels and stuff, and they snuck in a match or two here or there. I think, though, just even for the scripted goodbye, don't you think that this would mean a lot more if there was actual fans in the seats?
Absolutely.
So if there is a WrestleMania, either this year or the next, maybe where it's going to be in front of fans, that year that Undertaker is headlining the Hall of Fame class, that's when he's going to get his true farewell, when he can do it in front of a stadium of people to give him the appreciation. Not that this won't be a nice little ceremony, whatever it is they're doing, but I just can't believe that they would use a farewell to the Undertaker for real, kind of everyone come, all the wrestlers line the stage and pay their respects kind of thing, without the added benefit of true audience there to enhance that moment.
Absolutely.
So I think that's coming. But that is your Survivor Series, outlook of where it stands now. Obviously, there are a couple of stipulations on TV this week that may change a participant or two, and there's a couple of the team members on the traditional side of the ledger of Survivor Series that still need to be filled. But I think that it's Survivor Series, so not my favorite pay-per-view, but we will dutifully watch it with you guys, and next week
we'll be back to talk about it immediately after it's over next week. So,
right. Doug, if you're ready for the big finish.
Let me get to the banners, and boom, big finish. There we go.
So I'm going to start with the embarrassment of the week, Doug. If it wasn't such a news story, I would have obviously put Zelina in here, but since I already talked about it, I want to give my other embarrassment of the week. I love me some AEW, not like you loved AEW, but the second they said Shaq, I'm like, oh my gosh. Did you not learn your lesson from the Mike Tyson fiasco? It'd be one thing if it was Mike Tyson from 20 years ago or Shaq from 20 years ago. WWE has courted Shaquille O'Neal for the last 15, 20 years, teasing a WrestleMania match, usually with the big show. There's been plans even in place, and I know that because it never happened, maybe Cody and AEW thinks they're getting some sort of coup by getting the match out of Shaquille O'Neal that WWE always wanted but never could. But I'm not looking forward to it, and I know that there's not a whole lot of people there at Davis's place, but I think the crickets that were met with the reaction when she mentioned Shaq's name, I think that would have happened even if that place had been full of fans.
So yeah, I don't know who this girl is. I mean, she was physically very impressive, but I'm not sure why Cody or Tony Khan or anybody thought it was a good idea to give her a mic and let her do that. There are a lot of other talkers that they could have probably given put into that role to deliver what she delivered. But they gave it to her because I mean, I'm right there with you. We've done an entire show about like celebrity wrestlers and how we are not fans, and but I do think to defend my beloved AEW between Cody and Big Show, I think Cody can get a much better match out of Shaq than Big Show ever could. But I don't think that's going to be saying much for what we're going to see at whenever it happens. I'm right there with you on this one. I'm just shaking my head about the whole thing, all the way through. Although kudos to Brandy Rhodes for coming out and saving the entire segment, because Brandy can turn on a dime. She can be super classy, or she can just go straight up ratchet and go hard. And I love that.
That part, just Brandy played her role well. I agree 100%. If it was even a different talent that people already were familiar with, it might have got more of the reaction I think they were hoping for. But it was kind of unfair to her, like you said, physically impressive. But if you don't know her, then why do you care what she has to say? And I think it was just a not really great, spot to put her in. Apparently, they think highly of her because they gave her a contract. They announced pretty much right after she was all elite. And word is that she recently had a WWE tryout, and WWE passed, and AEW sees big things in her. And like you said, looking at her, very possibly could be big things, but
I
certainly
mean,
not the way you want to introduce the character. That was just odd.
that was odd. It's almost like she forgot that, oh, yeah, I got to talk about Shaq. So let me stop here because I know Brandy's going to come out and yell at me in a minute, but I almost forgot to talk about Shaq.
And you are right that Cody will get a better match than Big Show could. I mean, though, Big Show, to his credit, got a great performance out of Floyd Mayweather, but Floyd Mayweather was an athlete who was in his
Yeah.
prime. Shaquille
Yeah.
O'Neal is another big guy who was not in his prime. And so, yeah, I think that Cody is probably a better choice, but I actually question whether or not the match will even happen. I know they haven't promised a match, but they've set it up. I would not be a bit surprised if this goes the way of their Mike Tyson
Sure.
business. And I don't know, obviously AEW is a much, much better product than the old original TNA, but something about that whole Mike Tyson thing where you set something up to get fans talking with a celebrity and then don't even deliver on it very much reminded me of early TNA, and I hope that they don't do it twice now because
Yeah.
Shaq is the reason that the WWE never had the match, is that he would flake. So hopefully they have him locked down to a contract if this is the way they're going, because I'd be surprised if it actually happens.
I will be relieved if it does not happen, honestly.
I can't say that I disagree with you there, my friend. How about you? Embarrassment of the week.
So I'm going with everything we've just talked about, the whole thing from top to bottom. Because when she comes out, I'm like, okay, who's this? This is a great look. Oh wait, she can't talk. Oh, why did they give her a mic? Yeah, what's going on? Did she just say Shaq? What is happening right now? Okay, Brandy's coming out. Okay, Brandy saved the segment. Okay, cool.
Brandy was the best thing of that segment by far. So okay, I gave my little diss to AEW there, so I'm going to defend your boys here. Match of the week, I'm giving to AEW. That contest that happened at the end of the show between the Lucha Bros. Oh, you two, man, what a match!
Yes, I mean, oh, I don't. I first of all, I do not like. I love it, but I also hate it. If WWE was doing a tag team versus tag team members fighting, I would dislike it because it immediately means they're going to split them up. Stupid things are going to happen. Lucha Brothers need to be the Lucha Brothers, and they will be. But this is a much bigger storyline involving Eddie Kingston because I agree, match of the night totally goes to the Lucha Brothers. Absolutely, Penta and Phoenix. My goodness, I love like the viciousness of the going after the lucha masks of each other, and then having them gimmicks so where they're both like half ripped off, but of course they're still have their lucha identities, and then you have the whole story of basically Penta being the older brother, asserting his dominance over the little brother. But my performer of the week, and I don't know if we'll fall in line with this too, but Eddie Kingston, man. Eddie, my God, Eddie Kingston is great in whatever he does. But him on commentary, and then coming out after the match, and he just very subtly kicking Ray Phoenix out of the ring, you know, just establishing that he is this just terrible person, but he's a good guy. He's looking out for his best friend, you know. I just love Eddie Kingston.
Man, I remember when I first saw Ring of Honor, when I first got Ring of Honor, and who knows, I can't remember how many years ago that I finally got access to that promotion. Eddie Kingston was one of the first guys I remember seeing stand out to me because he was not really his ring work or his look, because physically he's not, an overly impressive wrestler. In the ring, he's not really an overly impressive wrestler. But as a mouthpiece, you believe everything he says. You just believe everything he says. So yeah, I agree with you. He steals every segment that he's in, and he was great in that segment to enhance what the brothers had already done in the ring, which was what you would expect the Lucha Bros to do. They tore down the house. He's actually not my performer of the week, though.
What you got?
I got to give it up to, I'm going to say he's 125 pounds soaking wet, Leon Ruff. So Leon Ruff is the least believable, threat that you can possibly imagine in the ring if you're not familiar with Leon Ruff. He's not very well featured, or hasn't been up to this point. I've seen him on the Indies and Ring of Honor, I believe, maybe a few matches here and there in MLW, but he is now with NXT. And if you didn't see NXT last week, Johnny Gargano, who had just won the North American title, came out with his wheel of challengers and spun the wheel to see who would be the first person he would defend against. And of course, the wheel is full of all these legitimate threats, Damian Priest and guys he's, got heat with. And it was obvious a rigged deal where the least threatening guy on that wheel is who was going to get selected. And so he comes out to be the fodder for Johnny Gargano, and instead Leon Ruff wins the North American Championship against Johnny Gargano.
Okay, I haven't caught any NXT in actually a couple of weeks just because of my work schedule and everything, but something else I need to go back and watch, man.
If you've not seen Leon Ruff, like when Damian Priest came out and put the belt around him and fastened it behind his back, it immediately fell to the ground. He does. I mean, that's how little this guy is. And typically I'd be like, I don't like the hot shot booking or make the championships mean something. But the smugness of Johnny Gargano trying to pull one over and instead slipping on a banana peel essentially and losing, I am fine with it in limited circumstances and when done well. And this was done so well, it put me more in the mind of 1, 2, 3 Kid beating Scott Hall back in the day. Or even before that, the time that the Mulkey brothers, beat the Road Warriors. Or, I mean, it was one of those, it was so over the top and unexpected that it ended up being great in the way they did it. So I know that he obviously, you had to pick the right person to play that role, and Leon Ruff was that right person this week. And if this is the only taste of gold he ever has at the main roster level of the apex of wrestling there in WWE, kudos to Leon Ruff for having that moment in the sun, because I think it's one that fans will remember. I know it's one that Johnny Gargano is going to be talking about for a long time on TV.
That is awesome.
But that's my performer of the week. So that's the 1, 2, 3, Doug.
Awesome. Well, there we go. Folks, we'll be back next Sunday, not at 8 o'clock, but right after Survivor Series to talk about all the wackiness that goes down there. We'll see. Kevin and I agree pretty much on everything except the women's match, and we'll see who comes out on top there. We'll be here to talk about it immediately after Survivor Series next week. Until then, I've been Doug.
I've been Kevin. See you next week.
Stay safe, everybody.